Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Shane. This channel is the Horror Basement, and welcome back to the long-awaited return of our Cryptids of Maryland series. First off, I would like to thank everyone who's coming back after previously watching the first 4 or 5, can't remember the number, of these that I've done thus far. They've been some of the most popular videos on my channel, and I want to especially thank everyone that watched the videos and then went down to the comments and gave me their experiences with the cryptids that we've covered thus far. It's been really interesting reading your comments and getting to know more about the creatures that we've covered thus far. But before we get into today's monster, which, spoilers, is Bigfoot, so a cryptid you've probably all heard of, I'd like to give you some backstory on the town of Sykesville. Now, Sykesville is a small town. Its population hangs around about 4,000, so a pretty small town that is roughly 40 miles north of Washington, D.C., which puts it basically right smack dab in the middle of Maryland. Now, in 2016, a website called budgettravel.com called Sykesville, or declared Sykesville, the coolest small town in America. But I read the article on the website, and it didn't give any specifics on why they thought Sykesville was so cool, so I am convinced that some form of bribery or coercion was involved. The one thing that is definitely cool about Sykesville is that starting in the early 1970s, there was a rash of sightings of a creature that was described as a 7 to 8 feet tall, hair-covered humanoid creature, which was sometimes also caked up to its waist in mud. And the hair being, of course, dark brown, or described as dark brown or reddish brown by varying witnesses. So you basically got your cookie-cutter Bigfoot description. And these sightings continued through the 70s into the 80s by, random townspeople, children, and long-haul truckers. Basically, people that the government doesn't want you to think are credible eyewitnesses, but we'll get into that more a little bit later in the video. What I specifically want to talk about is a sighting that took place in Patapsco State Park in 1981, where a gentleman by the name of Lon Strickler was fishing in the Patapsco River. When he looked to the shoreline of the river, and saw what he believed to be at the time a stray dog, which was behaving weirdly. And the reason for this became fairly obvious, as seconds later, the Bigfoot emerged from the same tree line where the dog was, and the two creatures, being the dog and the Bigfoot, engaged each other in hand-to-hand combat. Now, given that the Bigfoot had a height, strength, reach, weight, and presumably intelligence advantage, the fight didn't last long, and from what I can glean from the account, the Bigfoot basically dick-whipped the dog into the dirt, where the dog quickly turned tail and ran, and not long after, the Bigfoot also disappeared back into the woods. Now, given that he had just saw probably some really cool shit, if you just see a random dog and Bigfoot fight each other, Mr. Strickler wanted to tell people, so he immediately drove back to town, because at this point there were no cell phones. So he presumably found a payphone or a friend's phone, and called the police to report that he had just saw a stray dog and a Bigfoot fight each other. Mr. Strickler returned to the spot later that day, where he was met not only by a number of police vehicles and personnel that had closed off the area and were not allowing civilians in, but also a number of federal agent vehicles. And this is where we get into the deeper conspiracy of what happened that day. Now, as I stated previously in this video, Sykesville is only 40 miles from the northern border of Washington, D.C., which is the capital of the United States. And back in 1981, the President of the United States was a former actor by the name of Ronald Wilson Reagan. Now, you may be asking yourself, Shane, what is the connection here? But let me put it this way. Bigfoot is the most famous cryptid in the world. This is true now, and it was true back in 1981. And the one time he happens to be within 50 miles of the seat of our nation's power, he is attacked by a dog, which Mr. Strickler assumed to be a stray dog, but very easily could have been a trained German Shepherd or some other kind of attack dog working for the feds. And as soon as this sighting is reported, state police and federal agents block off the area, and presumably, if they were able to capture Bigfoot, black-bagged him and took him to an unlisted government holding facility. Now, what information Bigfoot had in regards to the Reagan administration, whether it be the drug war or Iran-Contra, I don't know. Unfortunately, the answers to those questions I cannot give you. You will have to continue the research into this on your own. But interestingly enough, despite the fact that Mr. Strickler reported multiple police and federal agent vehicles in the area, there is essentially no record of the police investigating or taking seriously any of the claims, despite the fact that sightings of the Bigfoot in and around Sykesville have continued sporadically even after the 1981 incident. But unfortunately, that's where we're going to have to end today's video. If you enjoyed this, leave a like. Let me know what you think about the connection between Ronald Reagan and Bigfoot. And let me know if you have any other cryptid or weird stories from around Maryland that you'd like to see me cover in the video, in a video. Also, hit that subscribe button if you enjoyed this and want to see more from me. Leave a comment, and I'll see you all in the next one. Thank you.